Before we begin, I just want to share a quick note. This conversation with Ellen was the first shared recording of Invisible Thread. As it unfolded, I lost all sense of time, not because we wandered, but because I felt incredibly present. It quickly became clear that it needs to live in two parts. You're listening to part one. Part two will be released next Wednesday, where we continue following the thread into grief, transformation, and the moments that alter the course of a life. Some conversations stay with you. This is definitely one of them. Well, hello, Ellen. I'm very excited to be with you here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be here too.
So, for anyone listening who does not know who EllenRutt is, I get to tell you who she is or a little bit about her. There is much more to who she is as a person. Ellen, you're a painter, muralist, installation artist, done all kinds of different shows. I'm a huge fan. I still have my pullover sweater that you designed. And today we are going to talk a little bit about life and what I'm calling the invisible thread. I think we all have these really layered, multifaceted experiences that we just continue to grow with and add to, and it only becomes more dynamic, which is kind of a very cool lived experience. But I'm so excited to be talking about this with you today.
I'm really excited to see, I don't know, just this project be an evolution of you and yeah, to just talk about life and understand hopefully any part of it together,
Yeah,
you know?
there's definitely a lot there.
Yeah.
I feel like you bring insight and a really beautiful and open perspective to life and your work and everything that you do. As we jump into this, the goal being looking at stories and growth and pivots and these paths that we've built for ourselves over time. I'd love to know maybe a little bit about who you are and what you do today and how you would describe that for yourself.
Sure. I am joining this Zoom call from Detroit, Michigan, where it is currently a snowstorm. And we met here. I think
Yes.
we met, what, 2017, 2018? Before that?
Maybe earlier.
Maybe earlier.
Maybe like
Yeah.
2015 or 2016.
2015, 2016, and you were doing farming
Mm-hmm.
and making botanicals. And I can't remember exactly where we met, but
Around.
around. Detroit is kind of like that.
Yeah.
Um, and I feel like it's interesting to have this conversation now because in some ways I feel like my life is sort of at a pivot point, but it's too early to say for sure. And by that I mean, yeah, I am first and foremost an artist. I feel like that is a term that is really important to me. It feels that it's just part of me, and regardless of how I'm making my money, it is true. So whether I have to sometimes do other jobs that are more or less art related, at my core, if capitalism weren't a thing, I would be an artist. And more recently, I've really gotten into natural building, like building things with straw and hemp and sort of biomaterials, which feels like the culmination of all of my interests. My interest in like I've in my a lot of my art practice is very much about the spaces we inhabit, where I live, what are the materials that are around me, capturing a particular place. And by building with biomaterials that already exist in the environment, it feels like a further iteration of uh those interests and those explorations that I work on in my art practice. So yeah, that's sort of where I'm at currently. I'm very new to natural building. I'm not an architect. I'm extremely underqualified, but I am very committed.
I feel like that enthusiasm is definitely palatable.
Mhm.
And I've seen snippets of some of the work that you're doing with the straw bale house, correct? I think
Mhm.
that's still
Mhm.
like a work in progress. I'm sure will take on many different forms, it seems like, or maybe just keep growing into something, who knows what.
Yeah.
But okay, so maybe working a little bit backwards.
Mhm.
Let's talk about, or I would love to know about how kind of you got started with your art practice, or like,
Yeah.
yeah, how far back that goes. Like, what does that look like? Say more.
Sure. Um, well, not to be like, let's take it back to childhood, but definitely let's take it back to childhood. And we're not going to like start from day one, but I went to a Waldorf school, which is a sort of hippie school based on the philosophies of this Austrian philosopher, Rudolf Steiner. And he's a sort of complicated cult-like figure. And these schools are, there's no grades, there's no tests, you're outside a lot. And the sort of theory behind it is that you're nurturing a love of learning in children more than you're looking for test results. So in theory, it's a beautiful concept, but butts up against, all sorts of things in the world. So a lot of my childhood was playing outside, drawing, painting, woodworking, learning to knit. I feel like that sort of set the foundation for my interest in art and allowed me, yeah, it really did nurture a love of learning things, or at least a curiosity. And and so I think that, yeah, when I think about like where being an artist came from, it was probably these young formative experiences. And then it's really, truly been the only thing I'm even remotely sort of good at. Like, I wasn't good at science. I wasn't really good. I was okay at math. Like, it just was sort of the only option. And so I studied it at University of Michigan and got an undergrad degree in art, and then sort of veered into the world of advertising, and I got a job working as a graphic designer at an ad agency, which it was so clearly not for me. It was it I really hated it, but it was so important that I hated it because it really motivated me to get out of there and to save money and to, like, I spent every hour that I wasn't at that job working on my art. It sort of required me to be super diligent and disciplined about my time, because it was like, if you don't want to work here, you have to do something else. And if you want to work on your art, then you should get better at it. You should meet people. It just felt like the hatred of that job was such important fuel for other parts of my life that, in retrospect, I'm like, I feel like it was kind of a gift in this backwards way. And so then when I was able to get out of there, I worked at arts organizations and then slowly started to build my independent art practice, painting murals and doing studio paintings and doing installations and things like that. And I feel like the community in Detroit is really solid and pretty supportive. And so it was, uh, yeah, just like a great, I loved being here. I thought I would leave Detroit and move to a bigger city. And then I ended up staying. Detroit can be really sticky in this way that I I kind of ride hard for Detroit. And I did not necessarily expect to, but now yeah, it just feels like I really love it here and I love leaving, but I always seem to come back. So I'm just accepting it.
Amazing. We love Detroit. Thank you,
Yeah,
Detroit, for all of your love and support.
totally.
What do you think was the like the call in what direction? Oh, okay. Let me reel it in. How am I going to ask this
Yeah.
question? When you were stepping into your art practice, like, okay,
Hmm.
you're I love, by the way, and it's so honest and true, sometimes that feeling of being in a job that you know is not for you, and just like maybe even having that be the clearer thing than the other path. And
Hmm.
so you just kind of lean in to that fuel of like, I know this is not for me. I know there's something else. I have all of these different passions, but like, where did you go from there in terms of like direction? So you're stepping into your creative practice. You're like, I
Yeah.
cannot be in this position anymore. I can maybe take other positions, but more in these other creative realms. And then in terms of your personal practice, like, how did you choose what direction to go?
Um, that's a really good question. I really feel like my life, some people set a goal and then they achieve that goal or they work towards it. I feel more that as a type B person, I rarely have clarity about a goal, but I have an impulse or I have some sort of intuition or some sense of feeling that like an attunement. And I know that sounds so woo-woo, but I really think I'm not always able to identify like where I want to take something. I just know that something's either right or not right for me. And sometimes it's all the information I get. And so I think for a while, all I knew is that I wanted to make art and I didn't know exactly what kind. I have always maybe again just thinking about like how many of the things I learned throughout my childhood or at this particular school were about the land you're on and you know it's like it's a nature school. And
Yeah.
so to be connected to the places where I'm living, I really wanted to make work in in these places and about them. So in Detroit, if it was um, murals became such a prevalent form of expression because there's so many walls here. There's so much there's so much community around telling the world that Detroit is a place that's like valuable. And one of the ways to do that is by decorating the spaces. And for some places, it's interiors. And I feel like for here, especially when I was doing this in 2013, 2014, there was a real effort to say Detroit is a place that is valuable and that deserves attention and deserves care and deserves resources. And one way to do that was, yeah, to paint murals. So I think that was a really driving force. And in caring about Detroit, I was like, well, then I want to, I want other people to know that Detroit is a place that's worthy of care. And so many of my friends are starting to paint murals or starting to do these sort of public forms of art that feel very much grounded in Detroit pride that certainly put me on a particular path. And I don't paint so many murals anymore. I think in some ways it was like culturally it was both like a moment, a trend, and then sort of got taken over by brands and, developers, and now it sort of can be tied up with gentrification and it's all complicated, of course. But the core of it, I think was this energy here in the city that was like really palpable.
I'm curious. So as this is all unfolding and you're painting murals and you're feeling this connection to Detroit and you're stepping deeper and deeper into your art practice and your expression practice. And I feel like you're starting to play with new mediums. So, how did you start to incorporate like more of the nature practice into your art practice? Because I feel like
Mm.
maybe that came, maybe that was like an adjacent thing that happened, like they were happening
Mhm.
simultaneously. But yeah, I when we met, I do feel like I got to see you starting to explore in these like different mediums and doing like bigger things or scaling stuff. And all of a sudden,
Mhm.
you know, there was like an installation you did in Hawaii that was like, you can move through this installation, you know?
Mhm.
I would love, can tell me more.
Yeah. Sure, sure. Um, yeah, and I also just feel like I need like Waldorf is not some sort of like perfect. It's so complicated, and to say that this like one ancient, he's not even that ancient, but like, Austrian dude should has the right way that children should learn. I am in no way claiming that this is the the correct way, but it is a way, and in many ways, parts of it worked for me. But yeah, the question was, yeah, in what was I interested in sort of like ecological concerns in my practice as separate or concurrent with the other art projects I was doing. I I don't necessarily see my art or my work as separate from my life. And so maybe we're human beings living on a planet and I'm making things or I'm consuming things.
Mm.
So just think of my art as separate from the way that I live feels like the older I get, the more sort of aligned those things can be. Because the more I learn about materials, the more I learn about how to make things with existing materials, the more I learn about what grows here and who grows it and where it came from. So I think that the sort of interest in nature is more that we are organisms living in an environment, and the more I learn, the more I'm able to sort of integrate all of it into a way of being or way of living. And I'm not I really value not being a purist about it. Like I think in a lot of the sort of climate spaces or just organizing around people who care so much about the environment, I really understand this desire we all have to like be good and to do the right thing and to not consume as much fossil fuel and to be living with integrity on the earth and blah blah blah, and then it comes out in these ways of like blaming each other for doing this, or the sort of the virtue signaling, or the just I don't know, just like it seems sort of judgy sometimes, and I really despise that. So I want to learn and continue to integrate it and really try and not be perfect about it.
I love that you're shining a light on the dual nature of humanity because I think that that's something that gets lost in everything, in conversations as well, you know, like even just knowing that you're imperfect, I'm imperfect for sure. You know, it's like nothing really is. I mean, aside from like if I look at Fibonacci sequences and stuff and I'm like, oh my God, nature, you're perfect. You know,
Yeah,
like
for sure. Yeah.
can't deny that.
No.
But at the same time, yeah, just the dual nature of life. And I love that you're talking about your whole practice as or your art practice as an extension of your life. Because I definitely see that. Like when I see your works, I feel like they are just a part of you. And this is just one form of expression that you carry. And none of it is perfect. And it's all you. And it's like, we do all have to hold this wild duality and pick and choose our battles and where we're going to put our energy. And we have to keep living and take care of our pets and ourselves and the people in our lives. So life is still happening amongst it all. Um, yeah, I think you described it beautifully.
I just feel like the hyper focus on the individual and like our responsibility removes the responsibility of the majority of the pollution committed. It's just like it's there are corporations who are making decisions. I'm not I'm not saying we shouldn't do anything. I think living in alignment with what we believe leads to a more meaningful life, but I also refuse to let a corporation make me feel bad for things that I have nothing to do with. Like,
Mhm,
I didn't ask for no trains in America. I want a high-speed rail system. How do we
mhm.
get that here? It's not because people aren't interested. It's because of automotive design. And I mean, I could go on so many rants, and I won't. But I just feel like I I don't have time to like feel bad. I already feel like enough self-blame for random shit. I do not need to feel, none of us need to feel bad for things that corporations are sort of just deciding for us.
So I feel like you've described this common thread throughout your life, your art practice,
Yeah.
and that it has come with many decisions that you've had to make for yourself. Can you pinpoint or do you recognize any particular pivot points that have
Mhm.
happened throughout this process that felt like pretty defining to the overall picture?
Mhm. Yeah, I think two come to mind. The first one is when I got sober, and the second one is when my dad died. And I Yeah, I got sober when I was 28 and I'm now 36. And before that, I I identify as an alcoholic. There's a lot of alcoholism in my family. There's a history of alcoholism in every possible direction. And I was, in my early 20s drinking an amount that was seemed to be the same amount as everyone else. And then at a certain point, it was not. And I was blacking out a lot. It just, there were clear signs that it was out of control. I was being a person I absolutely didn't want to be. And yet it took a long time for me to sort of accept the idea that I might be an alcoholic because I hadn't yet been to jail. I hadn't totaled my car. I hadn't, there were all these sort of markers that I guess I had in my mind that were like, here are the signs that you're an alcoholic. And I the fact that I didn't total my car was just sort of like a fluke miracle. And so it wasn't until, yeah, I think like sort of I mean, there were many signs, and quitting was less of like a giant bang event. Nothing particularly happened, but I actually recently went back and looked back into my journals to see. I was like, why did I quit? And I think I just got like really sick, like I got a cold or something. And I took a few days off of drinking and then I just continued. I just basically was like, okay, this I'm going to try and go one more day. And I actually had listened to a, I think it was a podcast by a friend of mine, who is someone who's now a friend of mine named Cody Cook Parrott, who had spoken really openly about being an alcoholic on a podcast. And they were my age, and they were speaking with a level of just like sort of comfort in that, in calling themselves an alcoholic, that I had sort of never heard. I hadn't heard someone in my generation speak about it so openly. And I really resonated with what they were saying. And they, in this podcast, just said that they sort of, so someone in that podcast was like, so how do you, do you think you'll stay sober forever? And they were like, I just take it one day at a time. And I take it 1 minute at a time. And I have since learned, that's sort of classic in AA, and it's one of the many methods that we use to stay sober. But it was the first time I heard it, and it really did impact me. It felt like every time I would start to feel like I wanted to drink, I was like, you can just choose to not drink in this moment. And I'm not going to think about the next moment. I'm not going to think about tomorrow. I'm just going to choose not to drink right now. And that really changed. Yeah, it really changed my life. I thought that I wouldn't be able to make art with the same sort of freedom that I had when I was drinking. I definitely felt a sense of euphoria and a sense of, um, at its best, it helped me access parts of myself that were without judgment. It felt so easy in the beginning when I was drinking. And then, yeah, I mean, it just, it's a slippery slope. If it stayed that way, I could, if it just didn't get worse, that wouldn't be a problem. But I just started drinking more and more, and it was becoming a serious problem and interrupting many parts of my life. And after that, I, I mean, I relapsed once, and that also was like a really important lesson. I really thought, I quit drinking, and I was like, okay, I feel great. I feel amazing. I actually feel so good that I think I can drink like a normal person, and I can just have one drink, and I'm going to be so chill about it. And I think I got this. And I absolutely did not got this. And yeah, it just, I, like any addict, you can't just have one. You do want as many as you can have. So it was so clear. The relapse was like so eye-opening. And then the second time I got sober, I was like, all right, I think this is, I have to accept that this is who I am and how I need to change my behaviors. I think it is one of those life changes that sets in motion many other changes. For example, after that was when I also started to realize that maybe I was queer. I noticed that my relationship to sex started to change. I was wondering, I didn't like have the same desires. I was more attuned to what I did want and who I was attracted to. And I wasn't having drunk sex anymore. I was really, really hyper aware of my body in all intimate situations. And I was like, whoa, I feel very clear about what I do and don't want. So, it was sort of, I didn't think that getting sober would turn me gay, but it just, you can't, if I'm not numbing my life over here and I'm now aware of what I like and don't like or what I want, you can't really ignore it. So it felt like all of these different life paths came as a result of getting sober, which was really an important, probably the single most important thing I've ever done for myself.
I really love that. In a way, it sounds like it cracked you open to maybe like a different level of love as well, which is such a beautiful gift of
Yeah.
that experience. Because I mean, was the second like full sober commitment, did that feel easier than the first or just different?
I think the second one felt I think it felt different in the level of like true acceptance that I had to like break up with alcohol.
Mm.
This wasn't a break. This wasn't a just gonna try seeing other people. Like this was a toxic ex who you had to cut out of your life is how it really felt. Like it the experience was what like if you had been dating someone who was so unhealthy for you, but like everyone else in your life could just sort of have a good time with. And every time you go out, you see them and you can't, and you're like, I don't want to see you. I don't want to see you around. So I think I have to like stop going to the same places for a while until I'm not bothered by seeing you. And like all my friends are having a great time with you, but you treat me like shit and you make me feel like shit. And I hate who I am when I'm around you. And I have to I have to end it. I have to end it and I don't want to end it and I'm miserable about it. And so it felt like I really had to commit to the breakup and all the things that come with a breakup. You know, you're experiencing a loss, you're experiencing like there's parts of it wasn't just like bad. There were parts of it that were so fun. And then I was so just hyper aware of everything in a way that I was frankly not, I didn't want to. I don't want to be aware of every feeling that I have. I don't want to be at a bar smelling everything and like remembering everything. It just felt like there was certainly a period of grief and loss and it like my life had to change, my habits had to change, and that took like truly years of just forming new habits, relating to the world differently, understanding how I liked to go out or what things were fun or not fun anymore, and just really reorienting my life towards a life without substances. And I think for me, it was mostly alcohol. Like I don't know. Oh, it's supposed to be a PG podcast, or I like
This is free for all. Go
free for all.
for
We can always
yeah.
edit it out. Like I still sometimes take mushrooms, and there's like the edges of my other parts of my sobriety are a little bit more fluid, but the alcohol seemed to be the thing that without it I have no, I'm not at risk of doing other substances. And I also like don't really do I really don't do many drugs at all, but I had to put some hard boundaries around the alcohol specifically.
Well, for anyone who is listening to this who doesn't know the Serenity Prayer, I did want to just like say it once.
Oh,
So,
yes.
and
It's
I've heard two versions, and I'm curious if you have an opinion about this. So
okay.
it's God grant me the strength or serenity. That's like
Mhm.
the discrepancy that I've heard, to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. God, that's just so
It's
good.
so good.
It's really
So good.
so good.
Yeah.
But there are so many directions that I want to go with you from this, because first of all, like I mean, and obviously it's totally up to you to share what you want or not. But I love that this gave you a level of clarity within yourself, that I was like, okay, or that you went through the process of being like, maybe a different like w- hmm just getting to know this whole new version of Ellen, who you like maybe knew when you were younger. I don't know, like we just go through so many different things in life, and there's always going to be these moments of kind of learning, relearning, unraveling, figuring it out again. Like, oh, that didn't work. This maybe is a little better, So I feel like you having the bravery to, in your late 20s, when I knew that in my late 20s, I was like, I'm an adult. I got this. Like, I know who I am. Like, this is me. No, there's still
Yeah.
many changes coming. There's still many twists and turns. Like maybe something that I thought I've loved for 15 years is actually something that I don't at all. So I guess there's like two directions here, because this is only the first of what you mentioned, like were the two big pivot moments that came to your mind. The
Mhm.
second being your dad's passing and that experience. But I mean, wherever you want to go from here, if you want to jump into that second pivot, I'm all ears. Or
Mhm.
also just like in this process of not only you getting sober, but then also getting to know you again on the other side of getting sober, which I feel like is not even the getting sober process. That's like the, okay, I'm now clearer than maybe I've been in a really long time, and all these
Mhm.
changes have happened, and now like who am I on the other side of that? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
having that awareness of yourself and then being like, hey, maybe I'm queer and like maybe I want to explore that and see what happens. And I can also think about love and connection and intimacy in this whole new way for myself. I mean, that is a very brave thing to do.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I wish it had just been like I was like, I'm sober and now maybe I'm gay. It was so messy. It was so messy, which I learned is the gayest thing to be. Um, I was dating a man at the time who was the is still very close. We're very close. Again, extremely gay thing to do. Be close with your ex. Um, we were dating and he had been with me while I was really drinking heavily and as I was getting sober and was so loving in a way that was clear and like he by that I mean he was sort of like I am unwilling to continue to go out in public with you if you're going to continue to drink like this. Like the way I feel like he set boundaries was illuminating and was also not, he wasn't trying to manipulate me. He was just like, I am dating you, Ellen, and I'm not dating the name for my drunk self was Emily because it was like, he was like, I don't know her. I don't know her. I don't like
Mm,
her. I don't want to date her. I'm not interested in that person. The version of you that is blacked out, like, that's not for me. The version of you that I'm with right now, I love. And I would love to go out with that person. But the other one, I'm not interested. So I felt like that type of clarity and the like ability to talk about it where I didn't feel like he was like making me a bad person, but just that there were two different versions and one of them I didn't even know. I was like I have no memories of that. Like I don't know her.
mhm,
So after I'd been sober for a couple years, I was still noticing that I was like, I really don't want to have sex. Like
mhm,
I don't know if I don't know what it is, but I'm not feeling this. I felt no pressure from my boyfriend, my ex. He was like, again, sort of like, I know you're on this journey of sobriety. Like, you alone know what your body wants. And I was like, he's the best. How could I not? He's, this is, he was react when I'm like, what's the best reaction one could have? He was like consistently sort of like being supportive in a way. And also we were like getting along great. So it felt like like deeply conflicted because I really still loved him and I didn't feel like desire, but it's really hard to tell. Is it just because we've been dating a long time? Is it because, like now that I'm sober, I just like don't feel the same type of like highs and lows? It was really hard to differentiate. Like, is this because I'm queer or because of the circumstances? And I I'm not in a hurry to end this relationship with this person who's like really a great partner. We get along great. The signs of a breakup that I'm used to, which is like you're fighting, you're not getting along, there's conflict, were not present at all. So I was like not really wanting to break up.
Mhm.
And then the pandemic happened. And this is like, I don't know if this seems to be a phenomenon that happened across the board, which was that I downloaded the TikTok app and TikTok TikTok knew this is like humiliating, but also I think maybe it happened to many people. TikTok knew I was gay immediately.
Ooh, say more.
Immediately, immediately, it was showing me queer content in this way that I was just like, I I am this I want this. I
This
I
is me.
I want to be gay now. Like I can't explain it and it should be studied. It needs to be studied. What happened to queer questioning women during the pandemic and the TikTok app as it existed back then. But I sort of was like to my ex, I was like, I'm having these thoughts and feelings like I might want to explore it. And again, because he's the best, he was like, I want you to live the life that you want to live for yourself. Like, again, I was like, okay, you're amazing. Like, yeah. So he was just sort of, again, like, whatever you need to be the most authentic you is what you should do in life. We opened our relationship. I explored polyamory in an extremely chaotic way where I dated a bunch of people at the same time. I fell completely madly in love with a person who's not a man, confirmed all of my suspicions that I was in fact gay, and it and as a result, yeah, my relationship with this man had to end.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I don't know what the takeaways were from that period than other than I guess maybe like there are periods in life where you have to sort of like burn it all down, maybe. Like in order to rebuild. Like you
I'm
have
here for
to
that.
torch it.
Yeah.
Um a concurrent a through line is that around that same time I also started getting really active in prescribed fires and became like worked for this company doing prescribed burns in Michigan.
Wow.
And so it
Oh
did
my
feel
God, the
like there's
poetry of this
a
moment. Oh
parallel
my
here.
God.
It's undeniable. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, it did feel sort of like I was like burning things down and in many aspects of my life. But again, prescribed fire exists because it helps regenerate the soil and it keeps larger fires from taking over. And so, there's a reason why I do think we periodically need to burn things down so that the soil can regenerate, so that invasive species can be remediated, so that we can have an opportunity to regrow before things get absolutely completely out of hand.
I kind of just want to like take a moment. Just kind of want to take a moment right now because that is,
Prescribed fires in the
oh
world.
my God. Like that. The story that you just shared is so layered and so deep in so many ways. And I'm so grateful that you were with someone who gave you maybe the permission, because really you were already exploring it for yourself, sounds like, but to be like in an intimate relationship with someone who is there to validate your experience as you're exploring it in all the ways that you're exploring it is so wonderful. I'm like a little speechless actually that all lined up simultaneously, like as you're like you're sober, you're reassessing things for yourself, things are being deconstructed that you thought were maybe pillars in your life in a lot of
Yes.
ways. And then you're at the same time still being open to love and connection, which is difficult to do simultaneously because you're like, okay, I'm entering this whole new space and I am gonna show up like as myself or as whoever this new version of me is while things are burning, and you are literally suiting up most likely and then going out into nature and literally participating in physical burns of landscapes in order to help prevent larger scale fires, which can be disastrous, which also is regenerative for the soil and for its particular environment. Because I know that there are seeds, for example, that can only be released in soil if they have been burned. Like that is a requirement for them to germinate. So you're like
Exactly.
actively participating. I mean, talk about a phoenix rising from the ashes moment.
Totally. I mean it. I don't. Yeah, it was one of those parallels where I was like, I can't tell if I like the fire is giving me permission to burn it down, or if I'm like more, I don't know what it was, but you're right. And also, it wasn't until recently. I mean, I don't know how much you know about or anyone knows about prescribed fire, but the native people, the indigenous people in the area have been doing it for so long. This is not a new practice, but it was made illegal for a long time because, the whole Smokey the Bear, um, only you can prevent wildfires. This
Mhm.
sort of fear of wildfires meant that all forms of fire became sort of illegal. And only
Yeah.
more recently are prescribed fires seen as like a maintenance strategy and reintegrated into forestry programs and maintenance, forest restoration practices. Um, and so, yeah, I think I just wanted to like name that it's not that it comes from it's ancient knowledge that this happens and that you're exactly right. These seeds, serotonin seeds, are activated by fire. And so, yeah, they require it. Nature requires fire.
It's
It
so cool.
it's so cool.
Honestly, it's so cool. But what a beautiful and poetic pair. I'm like still just digesting the story that you shared. um, but we can also talk about the second pivot. I'm really
Yeah.
interested. And I mean, I love all of this because I remember actually seeing through your work, you start using like charcoal and ash in
Hmm.
pieces. And it's like all coming back to me now. I remember that. And now it all makes sense. And I'm like,
Hmm.
yeah, I would imagine that that happened around that time, probably.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. At the time, I would work as a prescribed firefighter one day and then return to the same site with a piece of canvas and do like drawings or ash paintings the next day. And it felt like this really interesting combination of being both like a laborer and an artist, and that I'm interested in both. That I don't, when I talk about like being interested in the like place, like making art with or about the places I inhabit, that I don't just want to be an observer, but I want to be an active participant. And that there's only a that I could both tend to the land one day and return as an artist the next day felt really important that I wouldn't just follow the crew of people who are doing the prescribed fires and document them, but really get get in get in it, learn about it, and then be make these paintings, drawings, collections of ash. That that duality of being of like not just extracting, but ideally having a like dual relationship of regeneration and art making is where I that's sort of like my north star would be that I'd be able to do sort of both, not necessarily at the same time, but that there's sort of just like give and take component to how I live and make art or how how I make things. So you're right, that was sort of happening at the same time making these ash paintings and working side by side.
I just want to like say out loud again after just hearing you say it, but that you don't want to be just an observer, but you want to be an active participant. I mean, what truer words are there about life in general? I mean, hopefully,
Yeah.
just like, yeah, that's pretty much like that's a life path.
Mhm. Yeah,
It's really
and I
beautiful.
recognize too that like right now I have flexibility. I have the privileges of not having children, or I don't know if it's even a privilege, it's a choice. I have, an orientation towards this way of art making that allows me to do that. Um and I don't think you need to like be a full-time artist in order to to do that type of active participation in life.
Let's pause here for today. Part 2 will be released next Wednesday, where we move into grief and the kind of transformation that comes through it. Until then, take care of yourself, and I'll meet you here next week.